Hello everybody, it's Ed Rosenberg and I'm speaking to Paul Rafelson. Paul, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you doing today? Thanks for having me on here.
Okay, it's been a long time coming, so I'm glad to finally speak to you. Um, Sales tax, your perspective right now, where are things holding with your organization for online sellers?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So sales tax it's been a complete roller coaster for me as a tax attorney and for sellers over the last, almost 2 years now. And, where it's going in a lot of places at once, and there's a lot of factors. But, um, you know, we had this Wayfarer Supreme Court case, and what I think is confusing about this case, and I think the first and foremost thing we have to establish is that Wayfarer is a case about economic nexus, which may be relevant if you don't use fulfillment by Amazon. But in a state like California, who's been going after sellers for 2 years, well before Wayfarer, they're looking at you like you already had a physical presence because of your FBA warehouse presence, right? So they don't really care about 200 transactions. They don't really care about $100,000. They just think you're already there. So they're already going after you. Now, do I agree with them? Do I think they're right? As a person who's been litigating state tax cases for almost 15 years, who's been in-house at Microsoft and GE, Walmart, I think that there's a lot of problems with what the states are doing, and I'm used to the states being wrong. And in the case of California, we've got a couple issues. One, is it constitutional? The Wayfair court case did not say that small businesses can be subject to tax in this manner. Part of what the Supreme Court mentioned was that they presume that there will be software out there that will make this easy. That has not happened yet. So the Supreme Court's acknowledged that there is this component that if you're not $1 billion company, they have to make it easy for you. So that's one component to consider. And then it's just the state law question. Even if you have nexus in the state, are you a retailer under state law? And we know this, Ed, you're a seller. I was a seller in law school, actually way before FBA existed. We know this. You don't have a customer, right? And when's the last time you contacted your favorite customer and said, hey, how's it going? Can I sell you more stuff? Right? You can't do that. And the reality is you're not retailers under the law. Amazon calls you a retailer under your terms and conditions, but are you a retailer? And in California especially, there's actually a regulation 1569, if people Google it. It describes the fulfillment by Amazon transaction perfectly, and it says that Amazon is a retailer, meaning Amazon is the tax collector. So there's just all of these considerations out there that people aren't aware of that go beyond Nexus, that go beyond Wayfair, beyond the original Phil case or Bellis Hess before that they have to understand that there's no certainty yet. And so what the organization Online Merchants Guild is doing, what I'm doing, that is we're trying to get answers. We're trying to bring the lawsuits that we need to bring. Unfortunately, that's what it comes down to get answers for the sellers so that the marketplace to sell on Amazon remains a lucrative opportunity. Because if we don't get something, we don't get change in this, it's going to be too expensive for the marketplace seller. The cost of compliance is going to be too high. And it's not just sales tax, right? There's software companies out there that pitch sales tax. They're not telling you there's income tax. There's filing with the Secretary of State every year that has a cost. And there's so much when you add it all up. If you really did have to comply with all these states, income tax, sales tax, I mean, it is a six-figure cost, and that's a game over for a lot of sellers.
So what do you suggest states should do? Just don't charge sales tax and...
No, of course not. No, I mean, I think we'd be disingenuous if we said that. I think we would be disingenuous to say, oh, well, tough luck, you don't get sales tax. It's the opposite. And I think this is where you're going. I might have just jumped in on your question. I apologize that because it's a great question. Marketplace, and that's part of the constitutional law analysis, and I won't bore you with that, into that. But basically, it's like this: the states have two choices. One choice is try to collect sales tax from 4 million sellers, 2 million of whom are in China and will never collect, right? Or make Amazon collect, make eBay collect, right? Make them the retailers officially, or just look at the law and say, you're obviously a retailer. However you do it, that's what they need to do. And that's the fix. There's going to be other issues to face, income tax, but nothing quite as, major as sales tax. That's certainly the most number one priority right now. But there's no excuse. And so when we do look at the constitutional law, and without getting too specific, there is this sort of balancing. It's like, well, yeah, state do have a right to collect sales tax, but why are you doing it in this ridiculously stupid way when there's this obviously effective way, this obvious effective way, which we know works because 6 states are already doing it. New Jersey is one of them, right? Washington, Connecticut, Minnesota, Pennsylvania, and more states in 2019, many more states are probably going this route. That's what my folks in the tax lobby will tell me, that 2019 is going to be the year of marketplace.
So why wouldn't California, it makes perfect sense, even from their perspective, why wouldn't California make that the law? Why wouldn't every state make that the law?
Yeah, this is where the conspiracy theories start coming in, Ed, and I got to be a little bit, I don't know. People who've heard me speak before, and believe me, for the people in my business and who've known, Amazon tax people for, a long time, and this has always kind of been their strategy. And Brad Stone wrote a book called The Everything Store about Amazon's efforts to avoid sales tax. And there's a whole chapter on Amazon sales tax avoidance in this book. Amazon doesn't like collecting sales tax because when they have to collect sales tax, what happens? They're now priced the same as Walmart or Best Buy, right? They have a price advantage, which can be as high as over 10% in some states when they don't have to collect sales tax. And so, they don't want to let go of it because that will have some impact. I think less and less so because we're finding, I think you noticed this too, is like Prime members tend to buy things that are actually more expensive because they're Prime. And so maybe the price sensitivity is kind of fizzled out. But like today, if I was to buy a MacBook computer, that's like a $2,000 computer, am I going to go to B&H? I think B&H has to collect sales tax now in every state, right, over in New York. Or am I going to go to Amazon and I'm going to save $120? It practically pays for my Prime membership just to buy one computer from Prime. So, there is a tax motivated shopping mentality. You have that option to buy tax free, and Amazon doesn't want to let that go. Nobody wants to let that go. It's the marketplaces that really don't want to let that go. And so they lobby very hard to do that. Amazon has 30,000 employees in the state of California, and that's a lot of influence. And why California has decided to then, make that decision and then, raise hell for all the out-of-state sellers. It's very typical of California. In my experience as a lawyer who's gone up against California on behalf of Microsoft, you've seen this. We actually had a case decision that was basically discussing how California treats in-states than out-of-state. And I think when you have 30,000 employees in the state, you're effectively considered an in-state business in California. And I think it's unfortunate. And it's unfortunate that nobody understands the harm that this is causing. And this is, Amazon's a good thing, right? We see the stories all the time, right? How many success stories do we see? It's really heartwarming, right? When we see these success stories, all these sellers who just started off from, really built something. And, it's really sad that California is just doing this and the politicians are utterly clueless to even understand what's going on because they don't understand Amazon. And that's so important that you understand Amazon to really see what's going on here. And I've learned that in my own law practice. People come to me and they realize that having a lawyer that understands Amazon does make a difference. But when you see a person like Orrin Hatch, a senator from Utah, asking Mark Zuckerberg on national TV on Capitol Hill, how do you make money on Facebook if you don't charge for your service? Realize the problem is these people are in charge and they don't understand us. They don't understand e-commerce. And it goes back to the association of the Online Merchants Guild. And one of the broader missions is that it's our job to create our voice, to create our lobby, to create our advocacy so that we can put a stop to that. Because the only education right now politicians are getting in e-commerce are coming from Amazon and eBay. And the way they're going to explain the transaction is totally different than the reality that we know of. We don't have a customer. We don't get any recognition. I think Amazon might have just changed this, but the confirmation emails don't even say the seller's name on them. It's ridiculous. So, like I said, that's the the problem. That's what we're up against. We're up against politics. We're up against lobby. And that's why you have to take it to the court system. And what we're working on right now is doing that very soon.
Right. Now, recently, many sellers received letters from California saying that they're going to they owe money for, it's the FBA nexus.
Yeah.
They owe large sums of money. Now, regardless if technically your position is right or someone or wrong, the fact is the state's coming after them with a letter and they're going to put a lien against your bank. So are you suggesting that sellers should not contact California and just let that happen? What are you suggesting sellers should do?
Okay, so that's an interesting, I like the way you put that. California is coming after them with letters, but a lot of times that's just what they are. Now, I cannot give broad legal advice on a webinar, obviously, but I do represent a lot of clients through my law practice who are dealing with California. I have a podcast I did with a seller who went through an appeal. I represented them in an appeal in Washington State. It's on SoundCloud, and they want to listen. You want to listen to what it's like to go through a tax appeal from a seller's perspective. Right after the appeal, we sat down, we did a podcast just because I wanted sellers to hear it. What's going on? It's a nightmare. Okay. If you were to litigate a case in California, you would literally have to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars. No seller could do it. No seller I represent. Am I going and saying, okay, we're going to fight this head on. We're going to take them on. We can't do it. Okay. That's why we have the Online Merchants Guild. That's why it basically in its current form right now, as it's sort of becoming what we hope it will be, but in its current form, it's basically crowdsourced legal. We are basically setting up a crowdsourced legal fund to basically fight California for everybody. That's why it's so important everybody joins. And, you know, we obviously have these recommended dues, and we hope people will understand that, you know, the more you have at risk, the more you benefit from having, you know, the best lawyers in California in tax litigation fighting for you. You should kick in a little more, but it's a fraction of what it would cost you to have to defend this on your own. Literally, it's a fraction. And I'm not avoiding your question, but I'm just sort of setting up a framework. But getting back to, okay, so what do you do in the meantime? So that's great. There's this lawsuit coming online, hopefully very soon. Hopefully we'll see some very fast moving stuff. We're going for a temporary restraining order. You know, we're moving. And it will be quick. But what do you do in the meantime? Do you ignore the letter? Well, most people didn't get a letter that said you owe X, Y, Z. They got a letter that said, you know, we know you have inventory. And then it says you're a retailer in the state if you do X, Y, Z. I think it says if you store, you know, it says a retailer doing business in the state of California is defined. I'm thinking. You are a retailer doing business in the state of California if you're storing inventory. And the problem is that what that's defining is what is a retailer doing business in the state of California. The question we're asking and the question that our lawsuit is asking is, well, who says we're a retailer in the first place? I don't care. You know, I know what a retailer doing business means. Yes, if you are a retailer and you have inventory, you're doing business in California, which is the standard for nexus. Is another word for that. But if I'm not a retailer doing business in the state of California, then what? You know, then you don't need me, right? It's like I say, if you buy a pound of Starbucks coffee inside of Starbucks responsibility collects sales tax. They're a retailer. Buy a pound of Starbucks coffee inside of a Costco. It's Costco's problem. It's not Starbucks' problem. So what are you in this transaction? Are we Starbucks or are we Costco? Because it makes a huge difference. And that definition they gave you assumes you're Starbucks. And the fact of the matter is, as we know, back to our original point, we know what it's like to be on Amazon. And we know that this is a terms and conditions convenience. Walmart certainly couldn't get away with this. You know, went to a Walmart store and all of a sudden Walmart's not going to collect sales tax either because they're going to claim, you know, hey, we changed our contracts and we no longer have suppliers. We have sellers. And Apple's the retailer when you buy that iPhone, and our checkout account is just marketplaces. It's nonsense, but Amazon gets away with it. So what do you do if you get a letter? Well, I'm going to tell you, with my clients, it's, you know, it is a risk assessment. We go through a lot of analysis, but a lot of them don't respond. But there's a right way to not respond. If somebody sends you a letter and says you owe this amount of money, and if you don't respond in 30 days, we're going to, you know, issue a lien, you better respond, right? That's the time to respond. If California is sending, you know, casting a very wide fishing net just seeing who will respond. And then when you come in, that's when they nail you. You're just basically volunteering for that. You're volunteering yourself for that. So the key is not, you shouldn't respond to a letter that says you owe X, Y, Z, and you're going to get a judgment against you. Absolutely, you better respond to that. What you shouldn't respond to is something that just says, you should register by June 19th or January 19th or else. I mean, it doesn't necessarily have any teeth. So, and again, not my legal advice to any one seller, but something that when I go through the analysis with the sellers who are my clients, that is often the conclusion we come to, is that there's no upside. Well, what if you do owe, right? And that's the other question. What if you do owe? Like, what if you do the math? You're like, okay, I owe California $250,000 for 6 years of back taxes. What happens when you come forward? Like nothing. They might limit the look back to 4 years. They might limit it to 3 years. Might waive some of the interest, but if you owe $250,000 in tax and the interest and penalty on that knocks to $350,000, whatever it is, and they're giving you, some of that money back. So at the end of the day, you owe $325,000. Well, for most sellers, if they had to cough up $325,000 to the state of California, they're dead anyway. So you're already in kind of a lose-lose situation. So it just doesn't always make sense to just kind of run in and jump in. You have to do the analysis. You have to do the math, and you have to know what the message is. What are they telling you? Are they saying to you that this will certainly happen if you don't come in? Or are they saying, this is a scary notice, and if you don't respond, we're going to send you another scary notice, and we may give you a phone call, and we do all these things to make you feel like you're a criminal, but in reality, we're just being bullies. And we have to know that difference.
Have you seen some states actually go through all the way and put a lien against the seller?
Interesting question. I've worked with a couple sellers who came to me kind of when it was a little bit too late and had gone through a process with the state of California and got to past the determination point. And basically what California basically did was they had their money in like Bank of America, even though the seller was in a different state. Bank of America is everywhere. So once they had the judgment, they went and they pulled their money out of Bank of America. They went to the local, they're in California, they're in the other state, they can go get it, right? The sellers I've worked with, not one single seller I've worked with that hasn't already gone too far down the line. And this wasn't my client. This was somebody who reached out to me later, the story I was telling you. But they're not in that situation. It's been 1.5 years since I started representing sellers. Not a single one of the sellers I've represented is in a situation now, unless they went and listened to somebody else and did, and I don't know about it, but it's in a situation now where there's a judgment against them, where there's a lien against them. Because I would never let that happen. But the key is to know when to act. And if it's some generic letter and it's just trying to get you to come in, right, or register, because remember, when you register, if you read the letter that they're saying, they are basically subtly telling you that they're going to try to be fair. There may be some penalty relief. They're basically telling you they're going to go after you for back taxes. So it's a foregone conclusion that that's going to happen. So, are there other ways to handle it? I mean, again, outside of in a private law practice, there are better ways to register. If you absolutely feel like that's what you want to do, you just want to register because you want to mitigate your risk of just having this massive liability pile up. I get it. And I have plenty of clients that's what they want to do, but there's a smarter way to do it. There's entity structuring, ways to do it that'll reduce, nothing will ever eliminate the risk, but there are ways to reduce the risk substantially. The one thing I don't recommend, and I hear this a lot and it drives me nuts, is when people say, well, just say, when you fill out the form, just say that today is the first day you started doing business in California and you'll be fine. No, you won't be fine. And here's why. Because I've seen this, my whole career I've seen this. The moment you send in your thing, they're going to pull up your LLC or whatever your structure is, but most likely an LLC. And they're going to pull it up and say, oh, wow, this LLC is, you're saying you started doing business in California today, but your LLC is 5 years old. So where have you been for the last 5 years? And that's effectively what a nexus questionnaire is. And a lot of people can get that. So you're guaranteed to get a nexus questionnaire if you do that, because they're just going to say, yeah, you're still a 5-year-old entity. So are you sure you should have been here 5 years ago? So again, there's a way to do it. There's a way to mitigate risk in terms of if you really do want to shut off that risk because it's California, because it's your biggest state. I get it. But there's a smart way to go about it in terms of how you register with what type of entity, right? And that's just actually mitigates the risk. Again, I have clients who have done this. I have clients who we've registered with brand new entities, and they have yet to be be contacted for back taxes. So at least they're taking their risk and they're not on the radar. Now, am I saying that that's a guaranteed success? No. Could the state potentially find them and make the connection? Absolutely. But in terms of California is casting their wide net and just trying to see what they can get in sort of a broad sweep, they're not getting picked up on the broad sweep. Yeah, could change? Absolutely. But these are strategies. They're basic strategies. There's also asset protection strategies. Maybe this is a time for sellers to look at themselves and say, hey, maybe we need to do some things here to like mitigate my own personal risk if the state tries to come after me. There's a lot of things sellers can do to prepare for a worst case scenario that are probably good ideas anyway, right? I mean, outside of tax, I mean, if something you sell, a product that's baby safety oriented and somebody gets hurt, guess who's going to get sued? You. Amazon has deep pockets. They have deep litigation budgets. Manufacturers in China, you have $1 million insurance policy and you're getting sued for 30 million. What's going to happen? Strict liability. You're on the hook and you're the number one target. So, this is a good wake up call, just a general checkup, but I just can't advocate one answer for everybody.
Right. So let me ask you this. If the seller is not responsible because they're not the retailer,
mm-hmm.
Are you suggesting that Amazon pay the back taxes?
I'm not suggesting it. I'm advocating for it. That's exactly right. I mean, this is their responsibility. And there's a case in South Carolina right now where they've said that, where they're currently suing Amazon. There's some differences because South Carolina can't go as far as we can because they still are a state, have state interests that aren't quite aligned with ours. But at its core, yeah, Amazon is the retailer here. And so let Amazon figure it out. Amazon's a big company. Amazon's faced multi-billion-dollar back tax liabilities before in New York, in Texas. I mean, they know how to handle the situation, okay? So let Amazon deal with it anyway. But, I'm sure Amazon's not going to be paying, $1.5 billion in back taxes to California if it were to come out that way. I'm sure they would do some sort of special deal to figure it out because they're very good at it. But, this is crazy, going after small businesses. I'm sure you see this too. Like one of the coolest things about Amazon that I love as a platform is when I read these articles about like women-owned businesses and minority-owned businesses and how successful they are on our platform. It's like, why would we want the states to shut this down? These are good things, right? These should be, we should be encouraging this. And now what the states want California to do is they're going to kick these people off the platform. They're going to kick everybody off. They're going to make it impossible to want to start an Amazon business. It's like you're discouraging what we should be encouraging, right? And what we call that under the Constitution, we call that an undue burden on interstate commerce. Basically the state's interest, it doesn't make sense. They shouldn't be allowed to do this because interstate commerce has to evolve. And Amazon is evolution of interstate commerce. Amazon is, I'm a small business, but yet I can sell into the global economy. That didn't exist 20 years ago. You couldn't even think of something like that. I could just literally pack a box in my house, send it to UPS, and now my products are out into the global economy instantly, right? That's progress, right? That's a good thing. The states just don't want to, they don't want to basically go along with the technology. They just want all of a sudden, the advancements in technology and all that we've made in e-commerce now all of a sudden have to come to a halt and just adapt to these archaic state tax rules that, because why? Because 50 states can't get along and figure out a single technological solution to tax, or make Amazon collect. I mean, it is, there's a lot of problems here. And, I say this, as a part of the Online Merchants Guild, I wrote a Supreme Court brief and I discussed this very in detail, which you can find on, Supreme Court's website. You should Google my name or Online Merchants Guild, or you can check it on the website. As a lawyer who's been doing these types of cases, every state and local tax case involves constitutional law. This isn't like some crazy thing out of the blue. All of our analysis, because it's multi-state, we have to do constitutional law analysis, and a lot of what we do is constitutional law. So this isn't crazy talk. This is normal state and local tax talk. And then as I teach this, I'm a teacher in New York. I teach at, Pace Law School, which is not too far from you. I teach there, and I teach this course. I teach a constitutional law course that's based on state and local tax. And so from that perspective, and knowing this so well, it's just, I find this really, I'm really, somewhat disgusted by the state of California for basically ignoring what they know is wrong. They know it. And just basically choosing this bullying approach, scaring approach, as opposed to actually, enforcing the law.
Do you think ultimately this can go to the Supreme Court, right?
It could. I hope it doesn't, because that could take a long time. But it certainly is. It's certainly there. I mean, the Supreme Court in the Wayfarer case certainly predicted that this case, or a case like this, could be brought. Like, they were very clear about, you know, the Wayfarer case was about $1 billion company named Wayfarer, and, you know, really large companies claiming that it was an undue burden to collect sales tax. But they did acknowledge that for small businesses, there may be cases that can come through under other theories, like undue burden related to, undue burdens based on, you know, alternatives such as marketplace collection versus, you know, making, you know, millions of sellers do it, or any number of theories are out there that, you know, the Supreme Court invited. Well, the Supreme Court didn't even bless the 200 transaction test. They didn't even bless it. What they said was it seemed okay because of the technological advancements that would make tax collection easy. But they said also that there's no record of any of this. Like, they were speculating. They made it clear. It's like, we didn't have it on our court record to address those things because nobody put it on our record in the case, which means, like, it wasn't, if it's not on the record, then the Supreme Court can't consider it, right? They can't go find extra facts. It has to be in the case that's coming up to them. And so, but they sort of pontificated that if in fact it is true that states the technology is there to make tax collection super easy, then yeah, we don't see that there should be a problem with a 200 transaction test or $100,000 test. But the reality is the next case would be, hey, I'm a small business, and B, there is no technological solution. They literally want me to file as many tax returns as Walmart. And I'm, you know, and I'm a kitchen table enterprise in Utah making 70 grand a year after all said and done. I mean, it's so ridiculous. So, you know, could it go there? I mean, it'd be exciting. I just don't want it to take that long. My point of view on the legal side of this is that we don't have that kind of time. You know, every day this sales tax shenanigan, you know, this whole nonsense goes on. A seller is deciding not to join Amazon. A seller is deciding, I don't want to be a part of this. It's too much risk, right? I was joking with somebody the other day. I said, you know, I kind of actually think this is constitutional. It is a federal law problem. You know, small business loans. I'm sure a lot of your clients get the SBA loans from the government, the small business loans that are backed by the federal government. Well, you take out a $100,000 loan from the federal government. Do you think that the federal government, when they wrote that program, had in mind that all that money would go to pay tax accountants so you can do your taxes and pay income taxes? And I mean, not pay the taxes, file the tax returns because of all the, of course not. You know, it's nonsense.
Yes, let me ask you two questions and
sure.
We'll end it. May I know how many people signed up to the guild, or that's confidential?
Right now, it's confidential for a lot of reasons. I think it's gonna mislead people in terms of, you know, some people say we're doing great, some people say we're you know, this is gonna work. So we don't like to give the numbers out. You know, in terms of dollars raised, I mean, you know, we're hitting good numbers. I mean, we have expensive legal bills that we're paying. I mean, my last legal bill for our outside counsel was $50,000. You know, we're paying it. We're not going to have unlimited funds, though. I mean, we need to continue to raise money. We don't want to run out of gas in the middle of a lawsuit. That would be, you know, a problem. But, you know, I don't want people to think that, you know, hey, I'm going to give $5,000 or whatever, and I'm going to be the only fool who did that, and we're not going to go anywhere. No, we're going to court. It's a foregone conclusion at this point. We're at that point, and we have money to keep going, but at some point in time, we need people to start joining. And you know, like I said at the beginning, I would love people to join the levels we recommend. If you find that it's too high, we don't audit you. We're not going to go look at your books and records and say, hey, you're a multi-million-dollar seller here. You should have. No, there's suggested amounts. So, you know, people join whatever level you're comfortable. I mean, the two things we could ask of you is join and tell your friends and tell your colleagues. Like, just get the word out that this, you know, it's an all volunteer organization. Okay. I don't get paid. Bernie Thompson from Pluggable, the founder, Mike Jackness from Econ Group, we don't get paid to do this. This was created because, you know, sellers came together and just felt that there is a community here. Like, you know very well that we are a community. Sellers are a community, and we believe in a community. We want to preserve the community. We want to help the community advance, and that we need a voice, and that, you know, it's been too long. It should never have gone this long that you guys didn't have a trade association. That we need that. And so they just said, well, let's just do it now. Let's get started. And you know, they're in this because their heart's in this. They're not in this. There's nothing financially in this for them, you know? And from my perspective, you know, I don't bill any of my legal time to this association. Every dollar people raise right now, we raise is going to pay our lawyers. I mean, our operating expenses are so low that our original contributors, you know, our founders, their contributions pretty much cover that. I mean, it's web hosting, it's my Zoom expense, you know, so we can do our web. You know, it's so nominal, and we want that to be the case because we want people to understand that we mean what we say, so that when the tax return is published, when you see the expenses on the tax return and it becomes public record, you're going to see that's what we did with your money.
Okay, yeah, one last question, and we'll end with this. In your estimation, what % chance of success, let's say against California, can you have? 1%, 90%?
No, that's a good question. I'm obviously very confident in the case. I couldn't put an exact percentage. I'm obviously more than 50% confident because, like I said, I wouldn't be doing this if I didn't think there was a good chance. It's a tremendous amount of my time that I put into this, but I believe in the case because it's, as a constitutional lawyer, as somebody who really understands the stuff and has been doing this for so long, and I teach this stuff, my first year law students, like, they understand how unconstitutional this is, right? It's ridiculous. This is just personal to me. So I love putting my time into this. It's a very exciting case. It's a once in a lifetime kind of issue for a lawyer that, you know, I could never want to let this go. And so I feel very strongly about the case, but, you know, nothing is certain in the law. We are currently going down one road. There's about 10 roads we could go down right now. We're trying to take a very simple road, our first pass, to get a good low-hanging fruit win. But if it doesn't go our way, there's a lot of other ways to go that are unrelated. But we're trying to test the waters, and you know, if we do pick it up as a win, which I really hope we do, because I really think we should. I mean, the law is certainly there. It's going to be a great segue for us to get to the higher level, which is going to be the federal court challenges and the constitutional law challenges. And the other thing is, you know, we are focused on California right now, but it's part of a broader strategy at the federal level. It's part of, if California goes down, first of all, a lot of states are going to hear that. California is like the thought leader of state and local tax, as nerdy as that sounds. The state governments look to California. And if they see California go down, they're going to think twice about what they want to do. Maybe they should just go to marketplace. Most states are going to go to marketplace next year. You're going to see 2019, my friends in the state and local tax lobby in DC, they're saying that in 2019 will be the year of marketplace. So, you know, why are we registering in 50 states? You know, is that necessarily the best thing to do? Go register in 50 states when, you know, in 2019, 35 of them might be marketplace. You know, you put your, you know, there's a lot to consider out there right now, but, you know, it's an exciting time, but I wish we didn't have to deal with it. I really do. I really think that this is a shame.
I agree. It's historical. I mean, I understand your motivation. It's history.
Yeah, absolutely. It's you know, listen, tax is what this country was founded on, right? I mean, the Revolutionary War started because of tax. I mean, and this to me is pretty bad. I mean, this is what they're doing to you guys. They are trampling on your constitutional rights. Even if you're in Australia watching this video, your constitutional rights are being trampled on. You may not even know you had constitutional rights as an Australian. You're selling in the United States, you do, and they're being trampled on, and we're being bullied by, you know, just bullies, and that's what they're relying on. That's their basis in law for what they're doing, being a bully, expecting the fact that we can't afford the kind of legal hell to push back. You know, when I was at Microsoft, yeah, states were bullies, but you know what, or GE or Walmart, whatever. Right? Yes, the states can be bullies, but you know what? We were companies. We would take positions too. But the difference was if a state went after us hard on a ridiculous issue, we had a multi-million-dollar litigation budget to take them to the mat. They know that most sellers don't have that, which is why this crowdsourced legal thing needs to work. And we need the online merchant skill to work, and we need to do that because that's our best shot, and that's the fairest shot. That's the shot where no one seller has to bear the cost of litigating this case on their own, because I don't think it's right. I think this affects everyone, and everyone should be a part of it in any way they can, and that's what I hope people do.
Okay, thank you very much. You make a lot of sense, and you'll be hearing a lot from me. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Very great. Great.
All right. Thank you.